Mast is a lightweight component-first framework for Webflow. What does that mean? It's essentially a better way to start and build and maintain your projects in Webflow. It has a bunch of pre-built styles, variables, components that will all have a great starting point and follow best practices on how to set up and maintain your project for the long term. This isn't just for you to build faster now, but it's also a documented, clear, consistent way for future developers that may pick up the project or your client, marketer, or collaborator to get in and work effectively as well. If we go over to the components page, you can see a lot of expected things like buttons, forms, accordions, modals, sliders, etc. that are all here as a great starting point for you to customize and align directly to the brand that you're building for as a much faster way than starting completely from scratch. The clonable also offers a few different pages for things like basic layouts to see all these examples built that you can copy paste directly and start working from, as well as inspired layouts showing how we can do so much more than just basic image on the left, text on the right kind of layouts, all with the same fundamental rows, columns, text, icons, images, and so on. To back up a little bit further, to give you more context about what a Webflow framework is in the grander scheme of building websites, let's consider the other ways that you can create a website historically or today. Things like templates, or you may have heard of themes for WordPress and other platforms. This is a way that websites have built for a long time. It still is fine. It still works. But if you've tried this, sometimes the frustration can be that it takes a very long time to find the right theme or template that matches your brand, as well as even longer to understand how it's built, how to customize it, how to document it and translate it on to the next person. Whereas if you start from a framework, there's things like docs that already exist that go through all the ups and downs of it, and all of the way that it's built is consistent, and you can do the same thing from project to project to project into the future. Another comparison is something like a large component library like Reloom is a popular one in the Webflow space. This is another incredible way to start, and usually for something very quick, especially using their AI tools, is likely faster than just building a few sections in a framework like Mast. However, as soon as you get to a point where you need a fully custom section or need to scale the site further, these often get quite cumbersome to maintain. They skip past the process of learning how it's built, so you end up having more frustration and confusion later, and they can get a little bit bloated when it comes to page performance because they aren't prioritizing things like reusability. If you're a more advanced developer, if you've worked in other platforms, you're familiar with building websites, a great comparison as well is other CSS frameworks that have been around for a long time, building websites long before even Webflow itself. Things like Bootstrap, which is a heavy inspiration for the early versions of Mast, Tailwind, a more modern current one that's used with React and Next.js type sites, but a little bit more utility only instead of utility first type of development. If you've been in the Webflow space for a while, you may have heard like frameworks like Client First and have been around for a long time. Still a solid framework. You'll find a lot of similarities with things like class nomenclature. However, Client First has yet to update to a lot of the latest and greatest ways that you can build in Webflow to maximize the power of build mode. There's other newer frameworks like Lumos that are incredible. I'm a big fan of Tim Ricks, big fan of Lumos. This is, however, a very developer-first framework. You really need to know things like CSS syntax, especially for things like grid that can get quite complex. You need to understand things not just like media queries and responsiveness, but also container queries and other just advanced concepts that take time to learn and are not the easiest thing to translate from one developer to the other, as well as just for your self-learning. This generally has a bigger learning curve. Lastly, I really want to highlight the docs. This is, as with any framework, it's the source of truth for how to do things from both like fundamental mindsets of how we think about Mast, why it's created the way it is. It's a foundation for you to start and grow off of, not just a toolkit of every possible tool you may or may not ever need. Lastly, I want to note that Mast can be used to build anything from a simple landing page, a portfolio site like my own that's still using the row and column system, all the way up to enterprise grade sites like Webflow.com that was just relaunched at WebflowConf in 2025, all built on top of Mast. So you'll see this as a example inside look of it. You can see the row and column system still applied here consistently. I can also go to the style guide or component page and see all this same consistent structure. And so if you imagine this across one project to the next, how this consistency really creates efficiency both now and for future collaboration, it's a very powerful concept. And in my opinion, my favorite way to build any website in Webflow.